this morning, feeling round for my shoes. You know I got those mean walking blues. Woke up this morning, feeling round for my shoes. You know I got those mean walking blues. Hi everybody, it's Martin from the Washboard Resonators. On this week's video, we're going to look at open G tuning. So if you're new to this kind of thing, you want to play Delta blues, bottleneck guitar, this is a great place to start. So what will the video entail? I'm going to look at Walking Blues, that previous tune. We'll look at some Son House licks, some Robert Johnson licks, some Rory Gallagher licks, mix it all up. I'll also show you some rhythm guitar patterns to back up some singing, a few solo ideas, and then at the end of the video there's a few little things like the fancy little tricks and harmonics. We'll look at a few of the little rhythms like a country rhythm or a jug band rhythm and a Keith Richards thing, and it should all add up that you should have loads of tools to be able to play and write songs in open G. So if you're new to all this, we made a beginner's video a few months ago talking about choosing slides, string gauges, setup, actions. I'd suggest you look at that first if you're brand new to this. Also, while you're there, you could subscribe and press the bell icon below because it means you'll get notified of all the new videos, and that is probably the biggest thing you can do to help us, apart from going to the website and signing up to the mailing list and Instagram and Facebook and all that. Okay, so first things first, let's get you into tune. There's a tuner here. I've put this guitar into standard. Let's just go. So you know the normal strings, the key of E. We're going to put the guitar into open G tuning. It will make a G chord. So the way we do that is let's start with the fat string. That is going to go down to being a D. Now you can use your tuner or you can just use the D string as a reference. A little tip there to make this quicker for you. Tune under the note you're looking for, then tune up to it. You'll get up to it much quicker. So we've got a D. Next one, the A string becomes a G. It's going to go down. Yep. Next string, the D string stays as a D. The G stays as a G. The B stays as a B, but we'll look at that in a second. The high E becomes a D. So, now what you'll find is if you tune to a tuner, or just tune these and keep the B at a regular B as it looks on the tuner, you'll find that it sounds slightly sharp if your ears can hear that. So what we tend to do in open G tuning, we tune all the strings, then we just take the B and just take it down a tiny touch. You should hear there that technically if I look at my tuner now, the B is about 10% flat, but it sounds in tune with the rest of the guitar. If you don't understand that, Google tempered tuning and it will blow your mind. Okay, so let's look at basic accompaniment now. So the guitar's tuned to an open G chord. What you'll hear if I do that is that the fat string kind of produces a clashing note. So what we tend to do a lot of the time is we base our playing out from the 5th string, so the 2nd fattest string, all the way up to the top, the thin strings. And we only really use that at certain times. For the odd run, or when we're playing the D or the 5 chord. So let's just play a simple G chord. There we go, we're just going to play that. All 5 strings. That's our G, or what some people refer to as a 1, because it's the first note in a G scale. They call it the 1 chord. Next, let's bar a simple C chord, also known as the 4 chord. So basic slide technique is that you move the slide to where you want the notes. So you don't press the string down into the frets, you press the string firmly enough to make a nice sound. But at any point you can move, and looking at the fret is a good way, but the great thing about learning slide guitar is it will help your sort of ear training and tuning massively. First things first, let's just play that 1 chord, get to the 5th fret, play those 5 top strings. There we go, that's the C chord. Then we slide that along to fret 7, that gives us the D chord, also known as the 5 chord. You'll know that 12-bar blues are generally made out of 1-4-5s in a particular order. Now, what you'll hear is as I do that, there's a lot of nasty kind of noises happening. I'll show you if I play a single string. What you're hearing is this. You're hearing, as I move the string, you're hearing the note that the bottleneck is making, but you're also hearing behind it. And as you move, let me get this right for you. There we go. You're hearing that behind. Now that can be really effective if you're doing some Delta blues, kind of rough stuff. You can get some really cool sounds by leaving that. But a good technique to get into now as a beginner is just learn to control it, and you'll have the choice. So the way we do that is we just place our finger behind the bottleneck on the strings. What you should hear, I'm getting a little rattle from the fat string against the fret, but it's what you should hear is that you get quite a nice clean sound. And if I let the finger go. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just very simply strum those as the most basic backings in time to where the changes would be, as if it was a 12-bar blues. 1, 2, 3, 4. Woke up this morning, feeling round for my shoes. You know I've got those mean old walking blues. Next chord. Woke up this morning, ignore the singing, feeling round for my shoes. You know I got those mean old walking blues. Next up, let's just expand on that and give us some better chord shapes. So we've looked at barring it with a slide to make a C or a D. Next up, let's make an actual C chord here. So basically, there's your G or your 1 chord. To get the C or the 4 chord, you actually make it the same shape as you would normally make it as a C on a regular tune guitar. You take this finger off, and you just play the G up to the top string. And that is a C chord. So the notes go like this. We're not going to play the fat string. So the first thing is you've got your 5th string open, your 4th string is at fret 2, your 3rd string is open, your 2nd string is fret 1, and your 1st string is open. To get the D chord, you basically swap fingers. So you take this finger here, and that goes, if you like, down a string to the fatter string next to it, and then this finger comes in and plays fret 2 on the 3rd string. So the numbers are like this. we're not going to play, well, we are going to play the fat string because that's in the chord. So fat string if you want it, the D. Then 5th string, fret 2. 4th string is open. 3rd string is 2. 2nd string is 1. And then the 1st string is open. That's a D, C, open. There are some little things you can do to back up the 12-bar blues idea. Now let's look at the main riff of the song. I'm about to show you a riff which is like it's 50% of the DNA of pretty much most Delta blues, and it's a great thing to get into your playing. So what we're going to do is this song has that kind of feel, first of all. So we're just playing the 5th string and stroking down. And it's that kind of rhythm. Okay? So to get that riff, we pound along with our thumb. Then what we're going to do is on the 3rd string, we're going to play that open. We're going to slide to fret 3. Pull off and play the open 3rd string again. And then we're going to slide up to the 5th fret on the thin string. Sounds like this. Then to make it sound a little bit extra Delta bluesy, this is where you'll get your feel, and listen to Sunhouse. Well, he plays it differently, we'll look at that later. Robert Johnson especially. Rory Gallagher's got that rock, more of a rock feel than a swing feel. It's kind of... you can actually play, just pinch a few of the strings. You'll get what you like, but just... don't just play the single strings, like play the notes around it or the open strings around it. And you can play it without doing that high note. So that's basically what we do on the G chord or the 1 chord through the verses, singing. Woke up this morning, feeling rough on my shoes. Ignore the singing. On the Robert Johnson version and then on the Rory Gallagher version, they will often do this. When you get to the C chord, they will actually just play like a single note. And it's the 3rd string again, the G string. And they'll just kind of, like Robert Johnson basically goes... I'll do it now. I'll play some variations there, but you get the idea. So it's quite simple. So you could be singing this and you could be doing a whole chord or playing that chord down there. Doing some hammer-ons. And then at the end of the chord, when we're about to go back to the 1 chord, you're just going to kind of do like a kind of 7th-y kind of sounding thing. So you're just going to go to fret 3 on that 3rd string. So the next 1 chord, it kind of plays the same riff. And then there's loads of choices here. Let's just... on the 5 chord, we can use that 3rd fret again, and always, use that as a slide in. So I'm sliding actually from fret 5 to fret 7. So I'm kind of hinting at that kind of, that D chord. You could put some notes in. Then just sliding down to fret 5 to get that C chord. And then I'm finishing with a... So again, it's third fret on the 3rd string. And then just to do that little turnaround idea, I'm just walking from the fret 5, pinching quite a few notes. Next fret, so it's chromatic, up to fret 7. Then you can just do a slide down at the end there. start again. So there's a very basic way of playing the song with some useful simple little licks. Let's now just look at some little tricks of other players, a few little variations, and this is going to give your kind of Open G toolbox lots of ideas. So we've looked at the kind of Robert Johnson, kind of Rory Gallagher kind of way of doing this song. Now, the Sunhouse version is a little bit different. Instead of playing kind of so, kind of driving with a bottleneck, he kind of does a more kind of like strumming kind of pattern. And I mean, I'm kind of doing a little bit of a fudge there, but on the Alan Lomax recording, I think he has Willie Brown playing like a kind of guitar but tuned down, a bit like a bass guitar. So I'm kind of trying to add in the kind of the little kind of second guitar kind of runs. So somehow seems to be a little bit more just strumming the one chord, and then to add in those little bass runs, what we can do is we can just play the open, the 5th string, which is the G. Then we can go to the 3rd fret. Then we can play the open 4th string. We go to fret 2. So you can have like a little kind of hint at kind of like a bass line. And if you want to go to fret 3 on that 4th string, there you go. You've got a nice little bluesy bass run there, which you can just put in any way you fancy. Cool. So what Sunhouse does a lot is he will just, instead of using a slide, single notes, he will usually take the top 4 strings and play them as a chord while just kind of playing like a dampened bass on the fat strings. So he doesn't really let any notes ring out in the low end. So what we did there was we play those top 4 strings, and then all we do then is if we put our, if we go 3 frets up, 1, 2, 3 from fret 5, and just play the single thin string, we turn that major chord into a 7th chord. And that, of course, is a great thing you need for lots of blues to give it that slightly more bluesier kind of sound. So Sunhouse might be kind of a bit more in the 1 chord, and then that kind of thing, and back to the 1 chord. And then, of course, think about that. Once we're barring and going to that 3rd fret, if you take that all the way down, you turn your open G into a 7th chord, and that is a great place to, you know, to get kind of some really bluesy things going along. So you could just be playing along and then concentrate around that 3rd fret on these top 2 strings. And then, to be honest, all of those work. I'll see if I can show you this. So it's hammering on the 3rd string, and then hammering on the 1st string from the 3rd fret. And then that note is kind of, it's the same note as the open on the 2nd string. So what you often do is you just use that 1st fret as part of that lick. That's a cool lick, very useful for solos. So you can use that Sunhouse trick across all the chords. I've changed guitar because on the beginners slide video I talk about putting 16s on the guitar I have specially set up for Bottlenecks, which is what that shiny Tricone guitar is. As we're doing something with Robert Johnson, I've got a 1929 Gibson, just like Robert Johnson's in the famous photograph, and I thought I'd use it. But it's a nice thing to show you guys as well if you're new to this, because this is a regular acoustic with a really low action and 11 gauge strings, not 16. So what I'm hoping to show you here is that, you know, this is possible on a regular acoustic and not just a specialist kind of slide guitar. We just looked at the Sunhouse style. We'll do a few more little tricks, then we'll look at the solo ideas for this. So at the start of the Robert Johnson version, it starts with triplets. And that's a nice little thing to get in your playing if you can't do that already. The way you think about that is just, if you imagine you're playing notes 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, you're going to play 3 notes to the value of every one. So it would sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's a big thing for blues. So let's look at some of those soloing ideas. So those kind of licks are derived from the minor kind of pentatonic scale. Now let's just look at where those notes might be a little bit, just to see why some of these notes work. So 5th fret, first string is actually the tonic. It's a G note, so it's the most basic kind of note in this kind of song, in this key, which is why it kind of sounds quite nice and relieving when you get there. So if we go from there, if we then go up to the 8th fret, we have the 3rd note in the scale. Very bluesy sounding, the minor 3rd I should add. Very nice. Fret 10, we have the 4th note in the scale. Not a note you use a lot, but it works in melodies as a passing note. Fret 12, we have the 5th note in the scale, and that's a really nice note for blues kind of solo ideas. A lot of stuff works at the 12th fret in this tuning. And then the 7th note in the scale is the 3rd fret, so it's 2 frets below the 5th fret. And that's what give those Sunhouse chords that lovely kind of 7th, more bluesy kind of flavour. So if we could do the open G, play that third fret on the high string. So even if you're playing in like regular kind of accompaniment, you could always just do that before you go to the next chord. See how using that 7th note gives it a bit more kind of colour and tension to relieve to the next chord. But it also works in that kind of soloing idea I was doing. So I was using the basic riff and rattling a bit, very low action. But if I'm gentle, I get it. Yeah, so what I was doing was using that note, the 5th fret, and then going to the 7th, and then going to the 3rd string and the 3rd fret, and doing a little lick around there. Now you can make your own up. Another thing you can do while using that one chord, we talked about the 12th fret, so let's look at that. So what we were doing there then, we were using the triplets, and I was using the 12th fret. Now because whenever we make a simple bar, we get the notes we want in a basic major chord, it stands to reason if we go to fret 12, we're going to get all the same notes as open G, because they are the same notes, just an octave higher. And this is, you know, your second classic kind of Delta blues lick, is just to go up there and do triplets at that top, using those top 3 strings. So I was just playing that lick. And just doing the triplets, and then doing that, using the you know, the 5th, the 4th, the 3rd at the 3rd fret. Let's just look at that kind of 4-chord idea. Do the kind of Sunhouse shape, but break it up. Spell out the chord. Yes, we're definitely playing a C. Then play some licks. Use that note, because you're turning it into 7th. There you go. Back to the 1 chord. Maybe put some triplets on the 5 chord. So there's a really cool Rory Gallagher lick when you get to that 4 chord after the 5 chord towards the end of the phrase. So what was that? So play about 3 or 4 of the strings, you're at fret 5. You then go down to fret 4, fret 5, 6, 7. Then you go open and just play fret 3 a couple of times. So it should sound like this. I'll go from the 5 chords. Okay, as we're looking at Rory Gallagher things, I use Robert Johnson guitar. It suddenly occurred to me just now while I was filming that I actually have a 1931 Triolian, which is the same year as Rory Gallagher's. So the real deal. So let's just use this to finish up the video. So there's a few little other ideas we can do in this tuning which should give you those ideas in the toolbox. So we've been looking at kind of like a delta thing. Let's just look at one of the delta rhythm, which is the kind of more traditional shuffle. So you'll think about that from things like Sweet Home Chicago. So what are we doing there? So we just 5th fret, yeah, 5th string, muted, and what we're doing is we're just playing fret 2 on the 4th string, fret 3, then open, then if you think about barring that, so there you go, you've got a shuffle there in open G. You could do things like Dust My Broom, things like that. Another kind of idea is like a kind of jug band song, like Sitting on Top of the World, which is basically 12 bar, little variation. But it has a more kind of, you might think of kind of like a 2 feel, which is kind of raggy, kind of country. In the summer and all the fall, just trying to find my little all in all. But now she's gone and I don't know. I'm sitting on top of the road. Let's look at that. So very quickly, I'm just playing that 2 feel. Pretty cool. What I did there, which was different, which is a cool little trick you'll want, is to make that 4 chord, C chord, it just goes minor at the end. So all we do there is we just make what you might know as like a D7 shape. Still works against that open, there's enough tonality there to get it across, but that kind of turns that into a minor for a little bit. If you remember that other chord shape we did, if you flatten this note, which is the 3rd, that makes it a minor. So we just do this shape. It's a bit like an A7 if you're into regular tuning, but just back a fret. So it could be major, minor, 1. And then what I'd play was a turnaround. Let's look at turnarounds very quickly because that'll help. So, turnaround. There's loads of turnarounds you can use here. Because you've got D string, you've got 3 D strings. What I was doing there was playing off the D string at fret 3. I'm just going down chromatically, fret 3, and open. So if you think about that, you can use that in quite a few different ways. You could play it off the fat D string. You could play unison D strings by using the top one and then the 4th string. Cool. You could even do a little chordal one. So I'm using the 4th string and the 2nd string there. It's got a kind of different kind of sound. Next up, let's look at what Keith Richards might do. So Keith Richards used this tuning a lot. You'll see it on his old like 50s Telecasters. He will take this string off because it does get in the way a lot of the time unless you learn how to use it. Charlie Patton did those great. So it helps as well to use the fat string to do those kind of like snapping licks. So what Keith Richards would do is, remember that C chord shape we learned? Well, imagine if you refinger it. So you use these two fingers, and then you use this finger takes over from where the nut is, and you slide in. You get this shape, which is kind of like a sus chord. Now, what's really cool about this tuning is this will sound like instant Keith Richards. And you can go around the fret with it. And you can make up, you know, loads of licks that Keith Richards has already made up. So one last thing I did at the end of my version was I did some fancy little pingy-pongy harmonics. They're a great way to start a song or finish a song. So there's a few little tricks there. The first and most simple one is you can finish a song, say, let's just say we're going to finish a song. Then you can just do one of these little weird, spooky kind of finishes. Go to the 12th fret. Now remember that we had those notes on either side. If you just... So all we did is we're just playing at the 12th fret. We're doing like the tremolo and shaking. Sometimes at gigs I'll just come off, do that if I'm feeling funny, but it's not particularly funny. So that's a cool little trick for you, just a little shimmer at the end or starting a song. Another little trick for you is like what's called like a palm harmonic. It's kind of like a false harmonic kind of thing. So if you think that you put your hand at the 12th fret, and then you have to do a bit of work with your thumb pick or your plectrum, but if you can get it so that you kind of brush through the strings, so you're muting the strings, not pressing down, but you're muting them, and then just brushing through with the thumb pick, you get these beautiful harmonics that kind of chime. And what's really nice about those, anywhere where harmonics fall on the guitar, like 7th fret, 5th fret, 12th fret, you can get some sort of around the 4th fret. They kind of work really nice. But what's really nice about them as well is if you get a harmonic cleanly and you can get to it with your bottleneck, you can push the harmonic weirdly around the string and keep it. It's kind of a cool technique. The other little trick, which is like kind of like a false harmonic, is if you just finish a song. So what do I do there? So basically, if you pick a note, like you could pick the 3rd, or let's just, for the sake of argument, let's pick the tonic, fret 5. If you then go exactly 1 octave up and do the same trick as before, think about that works. It takes quite a bit of practice, but if you get that cleanly, you can push that note up. And you know, if you're any good at it, as I'm not really demonstrating it very well here under pressure, you can make it last a long time. It's a really nice thing to do in kind of like quieter kind of, you know, numbers. Goodness me, there is a ton of information to work through there. I really hope that kind of helps you all. So my name is Martin, the band is the Washboard Resonators, and we're currently locked down in Britain because of coronavirus. So what we're doing, we're just making a weekly video, writing songs, trying to make ourselves useful. So if you found this useful, do subscribe and click the bell icon. Do go to the website and sign up to the mailing list. Do go to Facebook and Instagram. Do buy a CD or a t-shirt. You know, we're professional musicians normally, and we're just playing a waiting game now, and anything you can do can really help. But in the meantime, we just want to share stuff with you, try and make our channel a resource for all that is old blues and ragtime and jug band and all the cool old performers. You know, we want to share information and just, you know, be a resource and help. So thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye for now.